Hey everyone, I'm Tony George from DocSports.com. Sports Betting 101 March Madness Primer. Of course, as I'm taping this, we are well into the conference tournaments, the March Madness uh, part of the year in college basketball, and I thought I'd just do some tips and techniques. Many people have reached out to me. Numerous radio stations want me to come on and talk about handicapping and betting the March Madness tournament. I've been doing this 31 years. So I've learned a few things over the years, and that's one thing about any endeavor in life that you're involved in. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you don't grow. You know, professionally and personally. And so we've learned a lot over the years in March Madness. It's been costly at times, and it's also been profitable at times. More so profitable later in my career here as I'm getting into the twilight years. I'm definitely into the fourth quarter or at least the final 7 or 8 minutes of the game in the handicapping world with all the young guns coming out of the woodwork. But one advantage I have over them is experience in doing this. So, just a couple of things of note. We'll talk about the NIT and the NCAA tournament because they're two different animals completely. And just briefly on the NIT tournament, you want to definitely take a look at home teams and motivation. A lot of teams that didn't make the NCAA tournament that are good enough to play in the NCAA tournament didn't get to the NCAA tournament because they can't win on the road. Period. And you're going to see a lot of these bigger name teams against teams that might be seated higher than them from mid-majors or smaller conferences at home, and yet they're catching points against a team from the ACC or the Big 12 or the Big East. You know, one of the also-rans in those conferences, the Pac-12, you know, just to name the Power 5 conferences. There's a lot of line value in catching 4 or 5 or 6 points with a home dog in the NIT, or even 3 points. Just letting you know, the NIT has always been an extremely profitable tournament for me to wager, and using that philosophy. Just a couple of things that you should note in the NCAA tournament is, and especially here as we enter 2023. A lot of these media outlets that want me to make comments and do podcasts or radio shows want to know who's going to win it all. Who's your Final Four? Who's going to win it all? Well, we don't know what the brackets are yet and what the seeds are. However, there's 6 to 8 teams that could actually win this thing this year. There is a crap load of parity in college basketball, and people say, well, you know, handicappers use the word parity as a cop-out. No, we don't. It's a fact. You know, you look at some of the power ratings, just go to KenPom in college basketball. And look at the number 1 team in a power conference versus the number 7 or 8 or 9 team in that power 5 conference. And you look at the power ratings, and there's 3 or 4 points separating first through eighth or ninth place in many conferences. That's how close it is. That's how difficult it is. Things need to go your way. You know, everybody can have a day shooting 38% from the floor against a team that catches fire and shoots 50. It can happen. And it can be it can be Houston against Tallahassee JUCO. It just could. You know, it happens. One game scenario. You know, this isn't the NBA where you're playing best out of 5 or best out of 7. You got one shot. So you got to be careful. But one thing I will tell you is keep your volume low. You start spreading it, everybody gets all excited, you know, want to bet a ton of games. You know, Thursday and Friday opening rounds. They're out here in Vegas going nuts. If you keep your volume low and don't spread it around, you're going to do a lot better. Number 2 is if you're going to lay a bunch of big numbers, you're going to get beat. There's a lot of good teams. You know, forget the Cinderellas. The St. Peter's last year. You know, Loyola Chicago a couple years ago. You know, UMBC, who knocked off number 1 Virginia and went deep into it. You know, there's going to be a Cinderella. There always is. And it's fun. Blows your bracket, your office pools. But tread lightly because bear in mind, laying big numbers is death to Smoochie. There's a lot of parity. You got teams like Oral Roberts this year, College of Charleston. I can go down the list of teams that are from small conferences and mid majors that if you're giving them double digits, against a number one, number two, number three, even a number four seed. These teams are like the Kansases of the world. They're looking to advance. That's it. They're not going to risk injury, risk wearing their team down. You get into the second round this year in this tournament, you're going to be playing a really good basketball team. And you're going to want fresh legs. So putting laying 15 to 20 points, don't lay big numbers. You want to spread it around a lot. Do a 5-team, 6-team parlay. Put $25, $30 on it. Pizza money. That way you can have more games involved, but single out your best bets. When it comes to totals, you'll find out totals, first half lines on totals. I like taking the unders. Obviously you need to know what the game matchup is, the makeup of the teams, all this, that, and the other. But in the NCAA tournament, these teams kind of come out a little tight first half. Big arenas, new arenas, unfamiliar surroundings. There's a lot on the line. Bright lights, big city scenario. I try and find unders in the first half in some of these first round games. That's something you want to look at. Teams that you want to look at as well, a couple things to really take a real strong look at is guard play. Backcourt play is everything in this tournament. If their top two scorers are leading guards and they play for Montana State and they're taking on Virginia, and they're catching 11 or 12, take a look. Guard play is strong backcourts. You can look up these stats, backcourt points, perimeter points, rankings from three-point shooting. The three-point line is the same in Billings, Montana as it is in Madison Square Garden. It's the same distance. The ball's the same and the rim's that big around. But you want to look for good guard play. Good perimeter games. Another thing is free throws. How many times have you came down to the wire in a game and you go to the free throw line and they can't make them, and the other team gets the ball down the floor, makes a layup, covers a 5-point spread, the team you're on wins by 4 because they couldn't make free throws. Look at the free throw percentages, season to date and last 5 games. So right here, right now, you can have teams that have been crappy all year long shooting free throws, and for one reason or another, their last 5 games, they ripped through their conference tournament, and they shot 78% when they were shooting 61 or 58 for the season. Right here, right now is what matters. You want to look at those numbers, and that's one thing when you're handicapping these games. First round, second round, look at recent stats. Do not look at season-long stats. Teams get in, it's cyclical when you have a 35-40 game season. Just like the NBA, just like Major League Baseball. It's right here, right now. How are they performing now? It didn't make a difference what they did 2.5 months ago to figure into their averages. Those averages could be skewed because you want to look at recent performance. The other thing, too, is you're going to see a lot of games that have 1, 2, 2.5, even a 3-point spread. And say you really like the favorite. Think about betting the money line instead of laying 2.5. If the money line is minus 135 at 2.5, why would you lay 2.5? In a game where odds makers think basically it's a pick 'em ball game. Maybe they got 2 points on a team because of one simple factor. Even public perception. Why get points involved? How many times have you laid 2 and your team was on 169-68? And they had a 4-point lead till they got fouled and couldn't make a couldn't make a free throw, and the other team got the ball, ran down the floor, and threw up a prayer for a three, and it goes in. You win by one, you lose. If you'd have bet the money line at 135, you'd have won. There's a lot more to winning money betting sports than just simply picking sides and totals. Really is. And you might find, which brings up another point, you might find an opportunity. In-game wagering is legal in 30 states now. You can judge some of these teams based on what they're doing at halftime. And sometimes it's more of the same in the second half, and sometimes they couldn't play any worse, and they're going to play better, and they're only laying 3 on a second half line. You want to take the better team laying a short number? There's opportunity to do that. So pay attention to all the games that are going on, and when you see something that's an eyebrow raiser, keep your eye on that and think second half line. Most teams shoot around 45% from the floor. If you see a game where two teams are shooting 34% or less in the first half, chances are it's going to equal out. So take a look at the total in the second half. They may base it based on the fact neither one of them are scoring. It could go way over in the second half. Because teams tend, as I said, these totals that I like to play first half unders, they come out tight. You want to look at those unders in the first half. You might want to take a look at the overs in the second half, depending. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. Bottom line. So these are just a few of the things that, you want to take into consideration when you're getting into March Madness. Low volume, do your homework. There's a lot of parity. Big numbers are, I'm telling you, big numbers are, they're going to be out there. And maybe some of them are warranted. But you got to look at a team's motivation. And the ultimate goal is, in this tournament, to advance, not put your team at risk, injury-wise or fatigue-wise. So, and there's a lot of good basketball teams out there. There's going to be 64 really good basketball teams that make this tournament this year. So, there's going to be some eyebrow raisers. There's going to be the massive upsets. They're coming. And a lot of the perception about teams, like especially teams from the ACC this year, the ACC was down. The Mountain West is a better conference than the ACC this year. So, don't, the story of a team's reputation over the years. There's a lot of really good basketball players that play in the Sun Belt, in the Missouri Valley, West Coast Conference, the WAC, the Summit. There's a lot of really good basketball. And a lot of these players have transferred out of Division I major Power 5 schools and went down and played there and have thrived and want to prove something. So bear that in mind when you're wagering March Madness this year. Best of luck. Be sure to get over to Docs. We got 12 experienced handicappers. I'm one of them. Our March Madness packages are $1.99. If you've never been a member, we'll give you a free $60 in any new account, hassle-free, and you can take that off the $1.99 and get hooked up for some fun March Madness. Let's all make some money.